Hey everyone, Dr. Foster here. Welcome to the Inner Circle. And today I've got a very special guest. As you know, we don't do a lot of interviews with people out there. And so I wanted to bring in one of my really good friends. He's like a brother to me. It's Dr. William Clark. And you'll hear me call him William and so forth, but he's Dr. Clark. He and I went through the doctoral program together and learned a lot together, and we've just been bumping around this world doing some things together since. I'm just going to go ahead and let him introduce himself to you and tell you a little bit about what he's up to before we get started.
Dr. Foster, glad to be with you in your inner circle. Just really quick, I'm a fundraising strategist to nonprofits and faith-based organizations, and I focus on revenue generating strategies for nonprofit organizations. You know, as we talk a little bit today to your inner circle, I think it'll become clear that a lot of the principles that I use for my clients are relevant to all business types. It just so happens that I specialize in helping nonprofit organizations. So glad to be with you guys today.
Awesome. And what I like to tell people, even in my inner circle, the not-for-profit as opposed to for-profit is really the difference in how the IRS looks at you when we come down to it. Because at the end of the day, both are actually collecting money to put somewhere, to do something with. And it's really, how does the IRS look at the collection and dissemination of that money? So that's how I like to explain it, kind of dumbed down, but that's really, in my opinion, what the not-for-profit world looks like when you're talking business scape.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. And then also that there are no stock owners in a nonprofit organization. So nonprofits have revenue options outside of what for-profits can do, such as fundraising, donations, et cetera, that are tax exempt. However, should one pass away, want to pass on the business, the nonprofit business, to someone, that is not legally possible. So there are trade-offs to choosing this model.
Absolutely. All the nuances. So today, my group, they get to listen to me drone on about different subjects in business. But what I wanted to do, you and I had this really cool opportunity about a month ago to talk about time leverage. And you were talking to me about some of the approach that I'm taking to teaching that concept. And my group in the mastermind here, they hear about me talking about it quite often. They've seen your video because I uploaded it to the archive. But what I really wanted to do was to allow you to shine today. This is me getting to ask you some questions. And something that came out of that time together, you were talking about Facebook. And a lot of the things that I hear from my mastermind group and my members is, how do you use Facebook to advertise, to reach people, to keep them plugged into what's going on? And I thought this might be a really cool opportunity for someone else to talk about this subject. And that's why I wanted to invite you in today, because I know you have an expertise as well. We run parallel in so many different ways in what we do. It's just that our niche or our target audience is different, but we do a lot of similar things. So I think you have some really important ideas that you could share with my mastermind group that I think would be beneficial to them. And I'd love to hear them. I know they're going to love to hear them. So if you could just kind of walk us through maybe the evolution that you came to in Facebook, and maybe bring us up to where you are today. And then I'm going to jump in with some questions, and you know how we go. You know how we roll on this.
So, I'll start back. I think, Facebook started when I was probably still an undergrad, and it started as this exclusive college campus only thing that you had to be invited to. So it created that exclusivity to it. And then, of course, as everybody knows, it just matured to what it is now. At some point, probably, around the time we graduated with our doctoral degrees, I know for me, I started to look at Facebook and other social media platforms as marketing, tools. I rarely used it historically for personal reasons. So, and I was never good at posting personal stuff. So, that just was never my thing. But I think, like most people, I was posting stuff, hoping that people would see it and then react to it. The problem was I had a very limited friend list. I was very selective of who I became friends with. And so that exposure really was limited. A lot of my friends that I was friends with on Facebook, um, they appreciated what I did, but they weren't into it. They weren't my target audience. And so I had to really evaluate some stuff. So, uh, I made some changes, and of course, we're in a different space. But I think the greater context as to where I am with Facebook, it really begins with this thing called yellow signs. Now, yellow signs means absolutely nothing to anybody listening to this recording, but I'm going to explain to your audience, Philip, what yellow signs mean to me. So back in 2007, 2008, 2009, for those of us that were around, running business at the time, that was when the economic crash happened. I lost my real estate business. I lost everything. And several years later, I found myself enrolled at Regent, starting a doctoral program, and was inspired to restart my real estate business. And I was listening to a podcast by a gentleman by the name of Sean Terry, the Flip to Freedom podcast. Now, this is a real estate podcast. He teaches real estate wholesaling content. However, what you should know about that particular time in my life and what he was teaching me how to do real estate from a totally different perspective I did not consider when I first launched my business. And it was because of his teachings I relaunched. And I was able to relaunch with no money, no credit. Everything was just gone by the time I relaunched. What I then discovered was rekindled my love for real estate. And I fell in love with the sales process, the sale and acquisition process, which required me to get in touch with potential sellers and potential investors so that I could make my spread in between. And one of the things that he talked about was a thing called bandit signs. So depending on where you are, you may see bandit signs all over the place. These are signs that are staked in the highway or on the side of the road, signs that are on the light posts in your neighborhood. Those are called bandit signs. And when I first started, I used to get these white corrugated signs from Home Depot, wrote hand lettering on there, telling people to call me if they have a property to sell. When I realized that the marketing of that worked, and I absolutely sold nothing from those white signs, but people were calling me. When I realized it worked, I started ordering these yellow signs with the lettering and the message on it, telling people if you have an ugly house, sell it to me, call me, I'll buy houses fast for cash. Those yellow signs, you used to put them out on the weekend, probably early Saturday morning, and then they will be taken down probably Monday afternoon by the city. But those yellow signs taught me how to market and how to sell. And I knew that where I was putting my signs, my audience was driving past those signs and stopping at those red lights. These are people living in the suburbs, living in a certain community in Philadelphia, where I'm from, and they were driving into the city and they were leaving the city. These are people who also may have owned property in North Philly, West Philly, South Philly, but didn't live in those communities. And then some of my clients actually lived in those communities, but they had to go past this location where my marketing was. And so that taught me that specific language, specific targeted marketing will capture the attention of your audience. Now, how does this translate to Facebook? It was probably sometime this year, Philip. I was studying a gentleman by the name of Russell Brunson, who is a known marketer, known for ClickFunnels. And I do not have his product, but I study his work. His work dumbs down the process of marketing and sales and funnels, which I believe you teach people should have, how they work, etc. And he began to talk about and explain, at least to me, what all that meant. So I started putting the pieces together. How does my history with yellow signs and this online marketing thing work? So what I ended up doing, Philip, I launched one of my new businesses earlier this year. For 3 months or so, it absolutely zero. This is how much I sold: zero, nothing, nada. And I was doing Facebook marketing. I bought Facebook marketing. In fact, I still have an ad running as we speak. I believe I've sold $0 off that ad, zero. However, something changed about March of this year. Besides the coronavirus hitting, I absolutely focused on my yellow signs. In fact, Philip, one of my inspirations for this year was to follow the theory of the yellow signs, which is I got to find my audience and put my content in front of them because they are trafficking somewhere, and clearly they're not trafficking where I thought they would be based upon my Facebook ad. So I found out that my audience, they traffic in a thing called Facebook groups. And in most Facebook groups, you're not allowed to market, you're not allowed to sell. And if so, it's few and far between. What I saw myself doing, what I found myself doing, Philip, was I saw people posting these questions and these comments about things that I care deeply about within the nonprofit world, specifically fundraising. And I think one of the lessons in marketing, whether it's Facebook or elsewhere, that I think you teach, and I'm going to reiterate, is that whatever you do, whatever your gift or whatever you're selling, you need to be super, super focused, super, super targeted in terms of what you're selling. Yes, I love leadership, love strategy, been studying leadership academically since 2006 or so, and then it has not stopped. So it's been over a decade. I love the strategy. I love the nonprofit world, but that's not enough to tell people about what I do. I specifically focus on fundraising strategies. I help people raise serious money, six figures, for each of their programs. And so what that translates to, for people who are not familiar with this, is this translates into the creation and development of multi-million-dollar nonprofit organizations. That's what I do. And so when I looked at these questions and I only answered the ones that were relative to my expertise, I found people asking, how do I get in contact with you? You can schedule a consult, you can purchase a class, you can purchase a coaching program. And I started closing every comment with a link to how to get in contact with me. I started responding to comments with substantive content. That content, one, proved I knew what I was talking about, proved that I care. But that content was so in depth that I started posting it in other places where I have a social media presence, which meant that it became evergreen content. And from there, from that moment on, Facebook groups, my activity has been tremendous. I may post in groups, but I get a lot of traction out of comments. And the reason is, Philip, people have raised their hand and said, I need help in fundraising of some sort. They have revealed themselves to me. That's the whole point of marketing. How do you get your customers to reveal themselves? They've raised their hand, and I've gladly stepped into their comments, engaged in conversations, and said, how can I help you? And so that's been kind of the journey with me and Facebook.
And the really cool thing about what you just described with the groups and the activity there, this is a concept that another colleague of mine is using over on LinkedIn, a very similar idea, and I've seen it used on Instagram and other places. So I guess what I'm trying to do is say to the mastermind group, don't think of this as something that you can only do on Facebook, because this part of the concept is relevant on other social media platforms. I'm seeing it work. I have a friend who's very successful over on LinkedIn doing this, and I have another friend that's very successful on Instagram doing this very thing, where they see something posted and there's a conversation going back and forth, and they get engaged in a conversation. Then pretty soon it's offline. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Now,
And I would say to that, and to your point though, LinkedIn does not work for me for the nonprofit world. There are groups, they're not active. It doesn't
yep,
work well for Instagram either. But I
that's right.
think the point you're making is, depending on your industry, the
That's right.
platform of choice will reveal itself, and it's okay that it's only one platform versus all three, all four. You didn't even mention Twitter,
Correct.
you didn't mention TikTok. So I think people need to find a relevant platform for their market.
Absolutely, absolutely. But that being said, when you figure out what your niche is and what that mode is, that, or that vehicle that you're going to use to get to that niche, the concept still works. And I think
Yes.
that's what we were both trying to get
Yes.
at. So
Yes.
what I wanted to ask you real quick is, if you could do me the favor of explaining, I don't want you to get deep into your theory, but explain to me what a yellow sign is. I'm not sure I caught that.
Man,
And I don't want you to
man.
give away the secret sauce here. I'm just kind of curious. You say, I got this thing called yellow signs. What would you call a yellow sign?
Yeah, so literally it is a yellow sign. If I could show this image, from my phone that I have as a reminder, it's a desktop image on my phone that I decided to use as my own inspiration, to remind me of what this entire year is about. It is literally a yellow marketing sign, and it's a typical sign you would see. You know what? For people who election season is here, and when your local politician wants you to vote for them, you see the yard signs. It's pretty much a yard sign, and it's
Yeah.
staked inside the ground. And so, as a marketer, as a seller, particularly in real estate, it was a widely known tactic and tool that this particular marketing platform or marketing tool can be used to capture attention. And so that's what it was. It just so happened that I created yellow signs as opposed to a red sign or blue sign. There is
Hmm.
some theory associated with that, but it was just a personal preference that it was a yellow sign.
Yeah. Awesome. And so, when you think about the yellow signs with context of what you do in these Facebook groups, what does the yellow sign look like there? Is that where you're putting your contact at the end of the message? I mean, what is the yellow sign in that case?
The yellow sign, and I'm so glad you asked me that. The yellow sign on Facebook is literally my comments, the content. Because the yellow sign simply says, I buy houses fast for cash. Call me at this number. It's the content. And
Right.
for me in Facebook, the content that's capturing attention are my comments. So someone asked a simple question: how do I fundraise? We just got a 501c3 status. We don't know what to do. Need help. You may get an in-depth 900-word response from me with the list of things you can do today to raise money, major money, serious money for your nonprofit, even though you're new. And so the depth of that content is the thing that makes you say, well, wait a minute, I didn't expect somebody to respond in depth to me in that way. Let me check out what he's talking about. If he is saying something that makes sense to me and there's a link there, I'm either going to schedule a consult, depending on what I'm offering, or take his class. And so those are the options. And what I try to do at all times is to think about an offer to be made, because I've caught your attention already. First of all, you raised your hand and said you have a need. Second of all, I'm responding to the need with an answer, and I'm making an offer to either schedule a consult where I'm going to pitch you and help you, but pitch you, and or I'm going to have you register for a class where I charge. So very rarely do I do something these days without an offer being made. Even in the nonprofit world, yes, I
Mhm.
still make an offer.
And it's really important for business owners to realize there is this fine line there between everyone is a prospect and only a few are a prospect. And I always say that everyone's a prospect until they're not a prospect, because at the moment that you step into one of those chat rooms or groups, you don't know who's in there. And so at that moment, everyone in the audience is a prospect. But it's when you start having those meaningful conversations that you realize, okay, the 98% over here aren't my audience, this person is. And so
Yes.
we have to, I mean, this is wonderful, this yellow signs, you put them out there. You don't know who your audience is. You don't know who's going to pick up the phone and call you. But what you know is at that moment, eyeballs are your audience. And
Yeah.
it's up to the natural selection of filtering to help you funnel that down, if you want to use Bronson's terms,
Yes.
to get to the end result. Now, my question though is, you mentioned something about running an ad. You've made zero off of it. Do you run ads at all other than that? I mean, are you effectively
only
using
on
ads?
face, only on Facebook, and I do not run ads on any other platform. Here's what I'll tell you: the ad that I run on Facebook is very similar to the strategy behind a yellow sign. But the problem is the ads on Facebook, I think, can be tricky to maneuver. I have gotten a number of shares, a number of likes, a number of comments. However, people have not followed through on the offer, partly because they're not ready. They haven't crossed that stage and place in their nonprofit cycle where they are ready to hear or take a class like this. But I'm gonna tell you what worked with the yellow signs, to your point, was actually the amount of traffic. Think about this: pre-COVID Philadelphia, if you're taking this particular highway to get to the city, to get to another suburb, to go to the restaurant, this highway was major. The amount of traffic that would cross this particular highway from Saturday morning until Sunday evening, which is really a 2-day window, was tremendous. Think about this also. The red lights lasted literally 2 minutes. So if you were at the red light and you saw my signs where I had several of them stacked up, I knew that on a 12-lane highway going each way, I would at least have captured, I would have a captured audience for 2 minutes, and I would have about 15, 20 cars as a captive audience for 2 minutes when you're staring out the window and you're like, I got this house that I inherited. I don't want anything to do with it. I got this house. I started doing a rehab project and I ran out of money. I don't know what to do. You know what? Let me take a picture of this. Let me call this guy. That 2 minutes was everything. And then traffic will go. And then about 5 minutes later, pause. So I had people who were forced to stop to read my signs, and I'm turning to my left, probably your right, because that's where the signs were. I was targeting the drivers of the vehicles, of the trucks, who would see the stack and row of my yellow signs lined up. So with the Facebook marketing, that was the intention for it to do the same thing. However, the call to action, getting people to convert, is just a different animal. So in order to replicate this, I had to figure out where the traffic was stopping at the red light. And the traffic was going to the Facebook groups, the red light that caused people to pause and stop and to freeze were their own comments. Because when you reply to Philip's comment, Philip is going to get an alert. It's going to cause him to stop what he's doing. He's going to look at his phone, tap on his Facebook comment, and notice that someone responded to him and specifically answered his question. That captive eyeball became my yellow sign, right? So that's kind of how all that translates for me.
So, you raised a really good comment a moment ago, and you mentioned pre-COVID. You've actually said that several times, pre-COVID. And you and I have actually spoken in the bookends between now and, when COVID started. And I have been of this opinion that now is like the best time ever to start a business, grow a business, expand, build,
Yes.
work on yourself, work on your niche. I mean, obviously your business has changed, my business has changed. We all have experienced some type of fallout from this, but I'm curious, has your business increased, decreased, stayed the same? Tell me what's going on with you. I mean, I could tell you what's going on with me, but.
Listen, from January to March, $0, right? Zero.
Right.
I hope your audience can see this, zero. The second quarter of the calendar year, I equaled what I made last year in my business, and I was doing that business. It was the same business, but I was doing it as live workshops. I equaled that full amount in one quarter for what I made all year last year. I fully anticipate that I would make 3, maybe 4 times what I made last year in my business, and it's because of COVID. This past month, the first month of this third quarter, I have surpassed alone probably 3/4 of my goal from last year all year. So I can't put into words how much I agree with you. As a pastor, I have preached and advised my congregation pre-George Floyd. This is the time and season. This moment is a gift. This is a moment where creditors are pausing and putting the freezes on collections. Are you kidding me? Credit
0%
can be repaired.
interest.
Listen, man, you starting a business and trying to get things together, you may not have been able to take advantage of things in June or July or August, but man, this virus is allowing you to get the on-ramp you need to get things fixed.
Yeah, I still think we have 6 months to a year of time left to really ride the wave on this.
Yes.
And I'm glad you said that about the fact that you're a pastor, because I wanted to make this point. A lot of times, when you're watching a video like this and you're like, yeah, they're trying to sell me something. First of all, I'm not trying to sell you anything because you're already in, right? But the point is, William is a pastor. Okay. He has no reason to be lying about his numbers or anything. And I've known him for a long time. And so when he's saying that he literally has made this type of money out of and activity out of his business in this last quarter, second quarter of this year, he's telling you the truth. And you're sitting there going, well, wait a minute, how can this be? We're in shutdown. The markets are, struggling. And I talk about this all the time. The market is not struggling. I looked at the market a little while ago. It's around 26,000 something. Pre-pandemic, we were at almost 29. So we're only three points, 3,000 off the mark right now, roughly. So the market is not fine. The market's fine. What's not fine is how people are viewing what's going on around them. And so what I'm hoping for in what I do and what I know William's doing is that we learn different ways of approaching it. You're talking about a yellow sign. You're talking about, listen, I'm running these ads on Facebook and they're not doing anything. And then all of a sudden, boom, I'm busy. What do you think? Do you think it's merely your activity in these groups that's caused your business to explode? Do you think it's a hunger to do something? What do you think is really the underlying cause here? I mean, obviously COVID has some play in this, but I'm just curious, what do you think it is?
Man, I think COVID has played a role in this. The George Floyd murder has played a role in this, where people are motivated to do something different. And I put those mile markers as a really a point of conversation because I think people have found themselves motivated to figure out, what can I do different now that COVID hit? What can I do different now that this incident with George Floyd has become public news? What can I do different now that we're in this season where I'm homeschooling my kids? So people are becoming more entrepreneurial. And again, to echo a point you made much earlier, launching a nonprofit is an entrepreneurial effort, flat out. But I think that timing has helped, Philip. You cannot control season and times. I think that, like you, I saw an opportunity to build and grow my business, but I also attribute it to being active in the comments. There's a difference when someone says, how do I fundraise? And people give a one-word answer, grants, versus when you have somebody who decides to spend quality time to give you an education and an opportunity to learn more. That type of effort I put in. Now, the question some people may be asking me, how do you do that? How do you type out 900 words? Well, there's a cheat code to it. Part of it is Philip and I don't think I've ever gotten out of my 900 word mode, because we used to do those things all the time, whether it's chat discussions, articles, full length papers. I don't think I've gotten out of that mode. So that's an unfair advantage we have. However, an advantage that we all have access to is this. Not the things on my screen, but this thing, right? This phone. And this phone, I think one of the cool things that I have used since I've been in school at Region particularly are the accessibility features, specifically the dictation features. I can pump out a 1,000 word post in literally 2 to 3 minutes, edit it a little bit, 2 to 3 minutes, and within 5 minutes, I have an in-depth post to someone's specific question with an offer. Then from there, I take 30 seconds to copy that post, to type out the question, paste my answer, and I evergreen the content to all my other platforms. I have a Facebook group that has grown over the past 2 months from 0 to almost 600 people, where all we talk about is fundraising, right? So I have another captive audience that I'm building in the midst of all this. And so it becomes evergreen content in that group, on my fan page, Dr. William Clark page, as well as my LinkedIn page. And if the content is short enough, on Twitter. So for me, Philip, I think that, it's been all of those things coming into play. But I got to tell you, man, one of the things that has been a trip for me, someone recommended several months ago that I do consulting. Now, when I launched this business, it was all about workshops, and it still is. So I said, all right, man, let me try it. Schedule a couple consults. It was weird. It was a little awkward. There was a gentleman. This story just trips me out, man. So just bear with me. There was a gentleman who scheduled a consult with me. He was probably the worst potential consult I had, right? And it was terrible because he had nothing to say. And mind you, I spent most of the time during the consults asking questions, giving a little bit of advice. This gentleman was he was just unaware of what questions to ask me. And I give away 30-minute consults free. I decided, Philip, over the next 25 minutes to teach him my 3 principles and my 3 secrets to raising serious money for your nonprofit. 25 minutes later, I breeze through this thing. I give him case studies, examples of how he can utilize all 3 secrets with his nonprofit. Yeah, all he says was, thank you. And then, of course, I made my offer at the end. After I hung up the phone with him, I then realized, no, he was the best consult ever, because that example taught me that I need to treat my consults the way I treat the Facebook comments. Tell me a little bit about your company. Tell me a little bit what's keeping you up at night. And after we go through all that stuff, take a deep breath. And for the remaining 20 minutes of that 30-minute consult, I talk nonstop about my 3 secrets. What ends up happening, Philip, and this is just the exciting part, when I make my offer, the offer is nothing but a breeze, because if you liked what I just taught you in 20 minutes, if I gave you concepts that you can deploy today, then you're going to absolutely love my mastermind group. And this is the stuff Philip taught me literally probably 6 to 7 months ago. You're going to love my mastermind group, which is live every month. And I'll talk about that in a minute, because I have a little twist to it that I've added since we last talked. You're going to like my library of courses, right? And I hope you guys notice what I'm saying, because Philip helped me flip the script, because I was offering my courses as my lead. Philip said, no, people are buying you. So you offer the live coaching as your lead. Philip, I use your advice faithfully every day without even thinking about it. The lead of the mastermind group, the lead of the masterclass is me coaching live. The second offer, or the second benefit, or the benefit that comes with it, is my 50 plus classes within my library. Pretty much think the Netflix of classes that talks about my 3 secrets and how to do this thing live. The third benefit of all this are the tools and the templates I use to raise major money. And then I close with, I would be honored to be a coach. Will love to help you. And I made it an affordable price of $42 a month. Now I have a much more expensive program for people who want one-on-one coaching and support, which is rarely what people are able to afford. Because then in order to afford me, you have to have an organizational budget. Philip, that has allowed me to convert so much more. I can't even tell you. So I am booked all the way through August for free consults. And every time I get a booking, I see that as a step closer to an opportunity to secure a new subscriber to my coaching platform.
Now, how long do you spend on a consult now?
30
Still
minutes.
30 minutes? 30 minutes?
Yep. I mean, and based on your question, I guess I'm at the end of this call thinking about spending less time on my consults. So, but right now it's 30 minutes. It's 30 minutes.
No, we'll have another conversation another time on that one. I have some thoughts that I want to share, but I don't want to share them in the inner circle just yet, because that's another time for another place.
Well, let me just say, whatever Philip says, guys, you guys need to listen, because while I know what I'm doing, my friend Philip has helped me tremendously. That is no joke. So,
but and we talk about this from the Christian side, and I don't talk a lot about my faith here in the inner circle, but from a Christian side, we use this concept, iron sharpens iron. And really, when you're looking at a mastermind group, you're looking at these training groups, really it's the dynamic of the people in the group. It's not just the knowledge person that's providing you the information you are seeking, the reason why you're there, but it's really everyone around you that's bringing the energy and the nuances and the insights. Because then they start asking, well, how does it work over here? And then you answer that question as the knowledge person. And then someone else said, oh, well, that's kind of like what I do. And then they ask another. So it really snowballs a lot of times. And what ends up happening is something that could have been like that 30-minute excruciatingly painful time that you had with that person becomes this enlightened, a mega moment for someone in the group. And so my point for you is you probably should be spending about 15 minutes on those consults, but that's just my thought.
We'll talk. We'll talk.
Now, in all seriousness, you have this fantastic background. I mean, you're a pastor, you're an entrepreneur, you're involved in the not-for-profit space, helping people to build these programs that help the constituents in a community, which I think is fantastic. You've been a fantastic friend to me. You're an author. You know, I mean, I can go on and on with the praises of the things that you have. How can people find you or your material? How do they best locate you if they want to find out what you're doing? I'm not asking them to leave my inner circle, but I certainly want them to connect with you if they're looking to start a not-for-profit, or maybe they're on the board of a not-for-profit, or they're thinking about helping one. I mean, how do they get in touch with you?
First of all, thank you for the opportunity. I think you said it best. If you are in Philip's inner circle, you're an entrepreneur, and you're on the board of a nonprofit that you want to see grow, you want to see develop, or you want to birth a nonprofit out of your for-profit business, you can contact me or find me at nonprofitfundingstrategies.com. Again, that is nonprofitfundingstrategies.com.
Awesome. So let's jump back real quick as we close this out. If there's one thing that you could tell someone about Facebook, let me stop for a minute. Do you have a Facebook group? Let me ask you that question.
Yes.
And how active is that group?
I'm very active in that group. So we launched it 2 months ago from zero, and we now have almost 600 people and growing.
And so that to me is part of this yellow signs when you can get people into the Facebook group. Now, obviously people that are in my inner circle, they're trying to learn from me how to do what I'm doing. And in some cases they're trying to learn what you're doing. To me, a Facebook group is a perpetual red light. So instead of 2 minutes at the red light for the yellow sign, if you're on Facebook, and a lot of people that are on Facebook, like my group is, they're getting content all day long, or as much as they're on Facebook. So to me, that's like the perpetual red light. If you're in a Facebook group, you're going to get content unless you turn off the spigot. Either you get out of the group or you mute it. And so I think that's fantastic what you're doing with that.
Yes, I agree with you, man. I agree with you.
So what I was going to ask you is if there's any last minute things that you could think of, maybe I didn't ask a question on, or you didn't think to say it at that moment. Is there anything left to share that would be of value to my group?
I think, I would recommend folks that use any social media platform to be consistent. Now, there's a consistency of posting, which, you should do, and people can get lax and distracted, obviously post consistently. But one of the things that puts a smile on my face, this does not generate money for me at all, but I'm going to share this with you because I think this is very important, is particularly in COVID, when I've gone to the store with a mask on, people recognize me for whatever reason, I don't know how, and they address me. Some address me as Dr. Clark. Others address me as the nonprofit guru, the fundraising guy. Now, to me, that tells me that what I'm posting is resonating. That has absolutely nothing to do with my ad. And it could do with my ad. But these are people that I think aren't necessarily my audience. So they are friends of mine, or they like a page of mine. And all I post consistently are fundraising things, tips and tricks, ideas. My podcasts, my videos, my messages, they're all about the same topic. And that level of consistency has dubbed me as what people believe me to be the nonprofit guru or the fundraising guru, etc. And so I think I would recommend to folks that they focus their posting, focus their engagement on a thing. The thing, Philip, you were a year ahead of me at Regent, but I think the story I tell all the time about Regent was during the orientation when Dr. Winston talked about becoming focused. It was one of the hardest things for me to say, and I think this is worth me saying because this is relative to business. Master level students believe they're God's gift to the world. And we thought we were too. And then Dr. Winston said, you were going to graduate from this institution dumb. You're going to graduate knowing everything about the period at the end of the 5th sentence of the 12th paragraph of the 6th chapter of the 26th volume of the anthology. When you zoom out, you absolutely know zero, but you know a lot about that little period at the end of the sentence. Now, when he first said that, that was very hard and difficult to receive. Yep. When I finally got it, when I found my thing, and I did not find fundraising as my thing when I was going to the doctor program. However, Philip, my thing became nonprofit sustainability. And all I talked about in my book was how to make money for nonprofits and with leadership and, infrastructure for that. And so that was the very beginning of what I'm doing now, fundraising strategies, nonprofit sustainability, all that stuff. I will tell you, it is the same thing in business. The yellow signs were a signal that I bought a certain type of house. I was not buying, and when people call me about a mansion, I'm not interested. Above my budget, not what I'm buying, is not what my buyers are buying. If you call me about something that needed to have work, something that was under market value in a certain neighborhood that I knew was growing, I became extremely focused. When I decided to focus my podcast I was talking about leadership for years, which you've been on the early versions of the podcast we used to do, me, you, Karen, and LaTanya. That was early versions of what I now do. And it was all about leadership, and I would talk about nonprofits. I decided last year, no, we're going to talk about everything fundraising, period. Because everything that I care about, leadership strategy, feeds into fundraising. My social media posts, man, all about fundraising. So I would tell you, man, just the focus is necessary. It's going to be painful, but I'm telling you, when you become so focused and niche in terms of what you do, what you study, what you deliver, people will then seek you out. There's so much opportunity in that niche focus that you have. It is more opportunity than you believe. So for me, that's kind of the lesson learned about Facebook and so any marketing at that.
Laser focus, man. One of the things that I think you do incredibly well, and if you're good at what you do, you're watching what other people are doing that are good at what they do. And yes. I probably have never said this to you before, but this is the truth. And I'll say it to my group before you. You're extremely good at creating content and then taking that content in what you've used the term evergreen. Not everyone knows what evergreen means, but evergreen is, the concept of you make it once and it produces money over and over again. And so you're really good at that. And so I know that when you do an interview like what we're doing right now, I'll send you the video link. You'll do what you want with it. You might turn it into a podcast. You might do a snippet and put it somewhere, whatever you're going to do with it. And I very well could do that. I could take the audio portion of this, put it out on my podcast. I know that I'm going to put the video in the inner circle, so that they can see what's going on. And so that is something you're really good at. And I know that you're taking that content and in some cases, having it converted over to written text, and then you're using it in your book. So this is all about creating the wheel once and driving the car all day long after you've built that, that wheel.
Hold on. Wait. So let me cut you off. I am going to accept that compliment. But the truth is, the person that taught me this strategy is a guy by the name of Philip Foster.
Never heard of him.
He taught me this strategy. You never heard of him. Well, I'm going to tell you about him. He taught me this strategy. I was probably a year into my doctoral program. And it was then you told me the secret to success in a doctoral program. And ultimately, what it boils down to was evergreen content. And I there's no simpler way to say it. Evergreen content led to the successful development of articles and term papers, and term papers led to the development of a final doctoral project, period. So while I'll take some credit, you're the one that said to me, this is how it's done. And I have applied that lesson in almost every aspect of my life and business since then.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Right back at you, man.
And you know, the funny thing is, I distinctly remember telling you that concept, and then I quickly forget that I told you that, which is kind of funny because you've actually said that to me several times. And, you know, I talk about that so much that, you know, I just forget who I tell it to because I say it all the time. You have to take what you have and turn it into everything. And that means that if you have two of this, that two of that becomes 100. You know, if we're going to simplify it into a sermon or, you know, biblical, it's like loaves and fishes, you know, you take these loaves
or
and
their
fishes
service
on,
and talents.
yeah, or the
It's the
talents. I
same
mean,
concept.
you know, and I don't mean to get deep into theology here, but, you know, that William pulls this out of me. It's his pastoral part. And, you know,
It's
I
the
can go
same,
from
but
preaching to
it's the same concept, man. I don't
preaching
know.
and meddling.
It just works. It works. It
So
works.
for my inner circle and for anyone else that happens to
Yep.
listen to this video, it's really important. Heed the advice of what William's saying. Yeah, I mean, the niche part, being consistent, the evergreen content, all of that is really important. And what it leads you to is the ability to go out and have your very own yellow sign, whatever
Yes.
your sign is, where you're going to do that, place that sign, whether it's on a street corner, whether it's on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, or, you know, I can list 100 other places, Snapchat and all. The point is you have to get good at one thing. Be laser focused on that one thing. Listen, if you're not good at tying shoes, don't do a video on teaching people how to tie shoes, right? I mean, if you're really good at dunking basketballs, get out there and dunk all day long and make money at it. I share this all the time. There are people on YouTube making money, and what they're teaching you how to do is a handstand or how to boil water, and they're making money. So if
That's
they
right.
can teach someone how they can boil water on YouTube and make money, why can't you focus on your thing and make money too?
Agreed.
William,
Agreed.
you're such a good friend. I appreciate you so much. And I am so honored that you joined me with my group today. And I hope that we can maybe entice you to come back another time. I've already promised to
Yeah.
be on
Thank
another
you, man.
show for you and your
Yeah.
group, but I really appreciate you coming today. Again, go check out William. What's the website again? Last time?
Nonprofitfundingstrategies.com.
I knew I would have messed it up. Nonprofitfundingstrategies.com. Check him out. Of course, you know, you can reach me through maximumchange.com. Hope you all have a fantastic day. Thank you for checking out today's episode. This is a bonus episode, and we'll be back to our normal inner circle group on Mondays. Have a good day.